Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Engineering and Technology, SOET, Master of Science, Renewable Energy and Environment, MSc RWEE. Semester 2, MEV 003 Environmental Law and Management. Block 1 Environmental Acts, Laws and Policies. Unit 3 National Environmental Legislation and Programs 2.
Programs 2, 3.0 Introduction. Indian Constitution is perhaps the first constitution in the world which contains specific provisions for the protection and improvement of the environment. It reflects the human rights approach to environment protection through various constitutional mandates. Supreme Court has held that the essential feature of sustainable development such as the precautionary principle and the polluter pays principle are part of the environmental law of the country in the pretext of constitutional and statutory provisions. Environmental destruction and pollution has serious concern with human life. The proper balance of the ecosystem is the need of the environment. Protection and development is a coexisting reality and industry needs to be conscious for sustainable development. The Constitution, 42nd Amendment, Act 1976, added new Part 4A, dealing with fundamental duties in the Constitution of India. Article 51-of this part consisted of 10 fundamental duties. Article 51-a specifically deals with fundamental duty with respect to environment. It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to protect and improve the natural environment including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife and to have compassion for living creatures. The fundamental duties are intended to promote people's participation in restructuring and building a welfare society. The protection of our environment is a matter of constitutional priority. Jaswal and Jaswal, 2014. The Constitution, 42nd Amendment, Act 1976 added a new directive, principles in Article 48 dealing with protection and improvement of environment. Fundamental rights should be interpreted in the light of directive principles. In Sachidan and Pandey v. State of WB, the Supreme Court is bound to bear in mind Articles 48-A and 51A(g) of the Constitution. In MC. Mehta v. Union of India, the court observed that Articles 39E, 47 and 48-A by themselves and collectively cast a duty on the state to secure the health and protect and improve the environment. 3.1 Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be able to understand the constitutional provisions related to environment, explain about fundamental duties, fundamental rights and directive principle of state, describe the various laws related to noise pollutions and penalty. Explain the regulations with regard to hazardous waste and disposal. Guidelines and discuss various case laws related to environment protection. 3.2 Noise pollution control laws, meaning and concept. The term noise pollution is not defined in the legislative acts. The Environment Protection Act 1986 recognizes noise as an environment pollutant and empowers the central government to frame rules prescribing the maximum permissible limits for noise in different areas. Legislative measures. It is important to adopt certain legislative measures in order to control noise pollution. Law is the regulator to control the pollution. Different countries have different legislations to control noise pollution. In our country, there was no direct legislation for the control of noise pollution until the enactment of the Environment Protection Act 1986. Under the law of torts, if noise affects persons' comforts, then it would amount to nuisance, which is actionable. It is not necessary that there has been any injury to health. The appropriate relief for the victims of the nuisance under the law of torts is available either in the form of damages or by way of injunction. In this case, High Court of Madhya Pradesh in Dhanna Lal v. Chittar Singh may be referred. In Radhe Shyam v. Gurprasad, the Allahabad High Court held that abnormal noise produced by the flour mill. The Karnataka High Court in G. Veera Bhadrappa v. M. Nagamma observed the noise produced by the chili pounding machine which disturbed the normal work and peace, Jaswal and Jaswal, 2014. Noise pollution can be addressed under the criminal law also. Under Section 268 of the Indian Penal Code, noise is considered as public nuisance and a criminal liability. In Ivor Hayden, we state the question before the Andhra Pradesh High Court was whether a person is held guilty and punished under Section 290 of the Indian Penal Code, I. Noise pollution control under Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. The provision of the above can also be used to prevent the pollution of all kinds of noise pollution. There is no direct provision in CRPC to control noise pollution, but Chapter 10 Part B containing Sections 133 to 143 and Part C containing Section 144 provides most effective and speedy remedy for preventing and controlling public nuisance. In Dwarka Prasad v. B.K. Roy, the Calcutta High Court considered the problem of noise pollution under Section 133 of the CRPC. In Bidyananda Patra v. District Magistrate, Cuttack, the Orissa High Court, while suggesting certain measures to control the noise pollution, observed that all district magistrates and subdivisional magistrates should be empowered to issue prohibitory orders under S.144 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973, limiting the hours of loudspeakers in religious places and for other social gatherings. 2. Central legislations. A. The Police Act 1861, Section 34 of the Police Act 1861 covers the problems of noise arising from music, which is an aspect of noise pollution. Under this provision, the superintendents of police are authorized to regulate the extent to which music may be used in streets on the occasion of festivals and ceremonies. B. The Workmen's Compensation Act 1923. Noise pollution can be controlled in the factories under the above-mentioned provision, which provides for compensation regarding the injuries caused in the course of employment. C. The Aircraft Act 1934. Under this act, government is authorized to make rules for the protection of the public health and make rules to control the noise generated by the aircrafts and take different measures to protect the people from health hazards. D. The Factories Act 1948. Third schedule of the Factories Act 1948 contains a list of noticeable diseases, including the diseases of hearing loss caused by the noise. Entry 22 of the schedule deals with noise-induced hearing loss. There is also to pay the fee for medical treatment to medical practitioners. E. The Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act 1981. This act was enacted for the prevention, control and abatement of air pollution. Section 2(b) of this act defines air pollution to mean the presence in the atmosphere of any air pollutant. In 1987, this act was amended and the definition was expanded to include noise. Noise pollution can be controlled under various provisions of this act. Under Section 16(2)(b) of the Air Act, it is the function of the Central Pollution Control Board to plan and cause to be executed a nationwide program for the prevention, control or abatement of air pollution. 3.3 Motor Vehicle Act 1988. Section 110 of the Motor Vehicle Act confers powers on the central government to make rules regulating the construction, equipment and maintenance of motor vehicles and trailers with respect to different matters. Under Section 110(1)(h), the central government can make rules regulating the reduction of noise emitted by or caused by vehicles and thus reduce the noise pollution. Under Section 111(2)(b) of the Act, the state government has got the powers to make regulations with regard to construction, equipment and maintenance of motor vehicles and trailers, prohibiting and restricting the use of audible signals at certain times or in certain places. Under Section 111(2)(c), state government can make rules prohibiting the carrying of appliances likely to cause a noise or danger. Under the said provisions, the problem of noise in vehicles resulting from their horns, audiovisuals and tape recorders etc. can be controlled. Under the Act 1939, every motor vehicle should be so constructed so as to meet the fuel efficiency standards prescribed by the government under this Act or any other law. A new clause may be added to include fuel efficiency as one of the criteria for which central government may make regulating rules. The Calcutta High Court in Rabin Mukherjee v. State of West Bengal, AIR, 1985 call.to22, recognized the nuisance created by noisy electric and air horns used in buses and trucks. The court directed the Transport Authority to strictly enforce the provisions of Motor Vehicles Act and the Bengal Motor Vehicle rules which restricted the use of loud and shrill horns. The Delhi High Court in Madarsa Road Residents Association v. Lieutenant Governor A.I.A.1995 Dale.195 entertained a public interest litigation to reduce the nuisance created by plying off heavy vehicles in silence zone and issue directions for taking prohibitory measures by invoking the provisions of Bombay Police Act and Delhi Control of Vehicular and Other Traffic on Roads and Streets Regulations, 1980, in Nayan Bihari Das v. State of Odisha, AIR 1998 ORI.39, the petitioner sought directions for prohibiting the use of multi-tone horns and other devices on the motor vehicles which produce unduly harsh and loud noise and cause disturbance and inconvenience to the public in general. It was noticed that Rule 119 of the Central Motor Vehicle Rules specifically prohibits the use. This horns and notices of these prohibition are exhibited at the bus stops and RTO offices. The Motor Vehicles Act, 1988 is the act which regulates all aspects of road transport vehicles. The Act came into force from 1 July 1989. It replaced Motor Vehicles Act 1939, which earlier replaced the first such enactment, Motor Vehicles Act 1914. The Act provides in detail the legislative provisions regarding licensing of drivers, conductors, registration of motor vehicles, control of motor vehicles through permits, special provisions relating to state transport undertakings, traffic regulation, insurance, liability, offences and penalties, etc. For exercising the legislative provisions of the Act, the Government of India made the Central Motor Vehicles Rules 1989, 3.4 Factories ACT 1948. This Act was passed after the Bhopal tragedy and the Supreme Court's judgment in the Shriram gas leak case. MC Mehta v. Union of India, AIR, 1987 SC 965. The 1987 amendment to the Factories Act introduced special provisions on hazardous industrial activities. Section 12 of the Factories Act of 1948 required all factories to make effective arrangements for waste disposal and empowered state governments to frame rules implementing these directives. Act No. 63 of 1948, as amended by the Factories Amendment Act 1987, Act 20 of 1987, serves to assist in formulating national policies in India with respect to occupational safety and health in factories and docks in India. It deals with various problems concerning safety, health, efficiency, and well-being of the persons at workplaces. The Act is administered by the Ministry of Labour and Employment in India through its Directorate General Factory Advice Service Labour Institutes, DUCFASLI, and by the state governments through their factory inspectorates. The Act is applicable to any factory wherein 10 or more workers are working or were working on any day of the preceding 12 months and in any part of which a manufacturing process is being carried on with the aid of power, or is ordinarily so carried on, or whereon 20 or more workers are working or were working on any day of the preceding 12 months and in any part of which a manufacturing process is being carried on without the aid of power, or is ordinarily so carried on, but this does not include a mine or a mobile unit belonging to the armed forces of the Union, a railway running shed or a hotel, restaurant or eating place, 1987 amendment to the Factories Act introduced special provisions on hazardous industrial activities. It empowers the states to appoint a committee to advise on initial location of factories that employ hazardous substances. The particulars regarding health hazards at the unit and also preventive arrangements are told to the workers. Every occupier should draw up an emergency disaster control plan, which must be approved by the Chief Inspector, Diwan, 2003. The permissible limits of exposure to toxic substances are prescribed in the second schedule to the Act. Safety committee consisting of workers and managers are required periodically to review the factory's safety measures. The occupier is required to maintain workers' medical records and must employ operations and maintain personnel who are experienced in handling hazardous substances. The permissible limits of exposure to toxic substances are prescribed in the second schedule to the Act. Safety committees consisting of workers and managers are required periodically to review the factory's safety measures. After 1987 amendment, the Factories Act defines occupier as a very senior level manager. Such person is held responsible for compliance with the Acts. New provisions relating to hazardous processes non-compliance exposes the occupier to stiff penalties. Third schedule of the Factories Act 1948 contains a list of noticeable diseases, including the diseases of hearing loss caused by the noise. Entry 22 of the schedule deals with noise-induced hearing loss. Under Section 89 of the Act, it is the duty of the manager and the medical practitioner of the factory to report the matter to the authorities in case any person working in the factory contacts any disease specified in the third schedule. The chief inspector, after confirmation, pays the fee to the doctor, and which can be paid by the owner later. The fourth chapter of the Act related to health issues affected by environment pollution in industries is another available provision. 3.5 National Safety Council 1966. National Safety Council is a premier, non-profit, self-financing and tripartite apex body at the national level in India. It is an autonomous body which was set up by the Government of India, Ministry of Labour and Employment on 4 March 1966 to generate, develop and sustain a voluntary movement on safety, health and environment at the national level. It was registered as a society under the Societies Registration Act 1860 and subsequently as a public trust under the Bombay Public Trust Act 1950. Council provides safety training to different multinational corporations and government agencies. 3.6 Industrial Policy 1991. New Industrial Policy of 1991 was started as economic reforms and more reforms were derived subsequently. This policy brought major changes in economic regulations in industrial sector. Under this new policy, many programs were introduced in public sector. Foreign investment has been given options and the practice. 3.7 Public Liability Insurance Act. In the case of MC Mehtavi, Union of India, AIR 1987 SC. 1086, popularly known as Oleum gas leak case, in which Supreme Court has observed that the industry engaged in hazardous processes and causes health threats to persons working there owes an absolute and non-delegable duty to the community. If any harm occurs on account of such activity, the industry must be absolutely liable to compensate. United Nations Conference on Environment and Development at Rio de Janeiro in June 1992 was called upon to develop national laws regarding liability and compensation for victims of pollution and other environmental damage. Indian Parliament afterwards enacted the Public Liability Insurance Act 1991 and the National Environment Tribunal Act 1995. The Public Liability Insurance Act 1991 is one of the most important legislative measures enacted in India to provide immediate relief to victims of accidents, which occur while handling hazardous substance. The Act imposes no fault liability upon the owner of the hazardous substance and requires the owner to compensate the victims irrespective of any neglect or default on their part. The PLI stipulates the maximum compensation for injury or death at 25,000 rupees and limits compensation in respect of damage to private property to Rs. 6,000. The right of a victim to claim additional relief under any other law is expressly reserved. The Act obligates the owner for insurance policy covering potential liability from an accident. An accident is to cover a sudden unintended occurrence while handling any hazardous substance resulting in continuous intermittent or repeated exposure leading to death or injury to any person or damage to property or the environment. With the insurance premium, owner must make a contribution to an environment relief fund established by the central government. This fund is to provide relief to the victims of an accident. The principal administrative authority under the PLIA is the collector, who is required to verify the occurrences of an industrial accident, give publicity to the event, invite applications for compensation, and award relief. The Act was amended in 1992 to introduce provisions relating to the relief. Rules framed in 1991 lay down the procedure for inviting and processing compensation applications and also cap the potential liability of an insurer at 450 million rupees. Under Section 3 of the Act provides that where as a result from an accident, death or injury to any person other than the worker or damage to any property has taken place, the owner shall be liable to give relief in the form of reimbursement of medical expenses up to 12,500 or for fatal accidents up to 25,000 rupees and fixed monthly relief of 1,000 in case of disability. Schedule of the Act. 3.8 Hazardous municipal solid waste, biomedical waste, recycled plastic, industry and the manufacturing of different products are based on the maximum use of natural resources, leading towards positive and negative impacts. Due to the excessive use and its negative impacts, there is problem of depletion, degradation, and pollution problem rising. Major problem of disposal of hazardous wastes have drawn the attention about the upcoming serious problem. Hazardous substances include flammables, explosives, heavy metals, dangerous microbes, chemical toxins, and so on. Exposure to toxic substances may cause acute or chronic health effects, including cancers, birth defects, miscarriages, damage to lungs or other organs, etc. In India, there are various laws which directly or indirectly deal with hazardous and solid wastes and toxic substances. Apart from IPC 1860, India also enacted Indian Petroleum Act 1934, Insecticides Act 1968, Explosive Substances Act 1952, Atomic Energy Act 1968 and Radiation Protection Rules 1971, which deal with specified hazardous substances. Under Section 6 of the Environment Protection Act, central government has made the Hazardous Wastes Management and Handling Rules 1989. These rules regulate collection, treatment, transport, storage and disposal of hazardous wastes specified in the schedule to the rules. These rules further conferred the powers to the pollution control boards to grant authorization for the activities connected with disposal of hazardous wastes. The board is empowered to issue authorization in this regard once it is sure that the operators of facilities have appropriate safe infrastructural facilities and equipments to handle the hazardous wastes. Non-compliance with the conditions of authorization empowers the board to cancel or suspend this authorization. Central government has also issued the rules for manufacture, use, import, export, and storage of hazardous microorganisms and genetically engineered organisms or SEL S1989, Ministry of Environment Forests, notification, dated 5 December 1989, published in the Gazette number 621 dated 5th December 1989, with a view to protecting the environment, nature and health. In connection with the application of gene technology and microorganisms. Rules apply to two basic categories of products are the manufacture, import and storage of microorganisms and gene technological products. B. To genetically engineered organisms, microorganisms and cells and correspondingly to any substances and products and foodstuffs etc. of which such cells, organisms or tissues thereof form a part. Rules further extended to new gene technologies and also to organisms and cells generated by utilization of such other gene technologies and to substances and products of which such organisms and cells generated by utilization of such other aging technologies and to substances and products of which such organisms and cells form a part. In other cases like sale, export, import of genetically engineered microorganisms, production, packaging etc. of genetically engineered products, drugs and pharmaceuticals and foodstuffs. These rules are also applicable. There are 6 levels of competitive authorities are established under the rules ranging from the international and national level to the district level. A. Recombinant DNA Advisory Committee, RDAC, for review of developments in biotechnology. B. Review Committee on Genetic Manipulation, RCGM, to monitor the safety-related aspect in respect of ongoing research projects and activities involving hazardous microorganisms. C. Institutional Biosafety Committee, IBSC, constituted by research institutions handling microorganisms. D. Genetic Engineering Approval Committee, GEAC, functions as a body for activities involving large-scale use of hazardous microorganisms and recombinants in research and industrial production from the environmental angle. E. State Biotechnology Coordination Committee, SBCC, to inspect, investigate, and take punitive action in case of violations of statutory provisions through Nodal Department and State Pollution Control Board or Directorate of Health. F. District Level Committee, DLC, wherever necessary to monitor the safety, regulations in the use of hazardous microorganisms and its applications in the environment. Recycled Plastics Manufacture and Usage Rules 1999, the central government in exercise of the powers conferred by Section 3(2)(8), read with Section 25 of the Environment Protection Act 1986, has enacted these rules. These came into force in 1999. These rules have been enacted with the aim to prohibit the use of carry bags or containers made of recycled plastics for storing, carrying, dispensing, or packaging of foodstuffs. These rules further prescribe conditions for manufacturing to carry bags and containers of plastics. They also put obligation on the Plastic Industry Association to undertake self-regulatory measures. Handbook on Environmental Law, Environment Protection, Land and Energy Laws, Sanjay Upadhyay, Videsh Upadhyay, Lexis, Nexus Butterwords, Wall 3. In this significant set of rules issued by the central government is the Recycled Plastics Manufacture and Usage Rules 1999, the Gazette of India. Extraordinary, Part 2 Sub S2 issued by Ministry of Environment and Forests, wide notification. Number S0705F dated 2nd September 1999. The SPCB and Pollution Control Committees, PCCs, have been designated as competent authorities to enforce these rules. In concerned district where no such authority has been constituted by the state government or union territory, the district collector or the deputy commissioner will be the authority for enforcement of the provisions of these rules. These rules prohibit the usage of carry bags or containers made of recycled plastics and prescribe conditions of manufacture of carry bags and containers made of plastics. Standards of recycling, marking and codification of plastics have also been specified. Handbook on Environmental Law, Environment Protection, Land and Energy Laws, Sanjay Upadhyay, Videsh, Upadhyay LexisNexis Butterworth's Wall 3. Rule 3 provides that the pollution control boards are authority for enforcing these rules related to manufacture and recycling. Rule 6 provides that recycling of plastic bags or containers shall be undertaken strictly in accordance with the Bureau of Indian Standards Specifications, Municipal Solid Wastes, Management and Handling, Rules 2000, Municipal Solid Waste, MSW, Management or garbage disposal is another neglected area of urban development. In most cities, nearly half of the MSW generated remains unattended. The urban poor breathe immediate impact of the resulting unhygienic conditions, but few city dwellers escape the periodic outbreaks of diseases that spread in unhealthy urban environments. In 1995, report prepared for the Planning Commission acknowledges the progressive decline in the standard of services with respect to the collection and disposal of household, hospital and industrial wastes, based on interview with Almitra Patel, convener, Intouch Waste Network. In this regard, rules to regulate the management and handling of the solid wastes are the Municipal Solid Wastes Management Rules 2000, issued by the Ministry of Environment and Forests, wide notification number 908E, dated 25 September 2000. These rules apply to every municipal authority responsible for collection, segregation, storage, transportation, processing and disposal of municipal solid wastes. The nodal responsibility to enforce these rules vests with the municipal authority within the territorial area of the municipality, which includes any infrastructure development for setting up wastes processing and disposal facility. Handbook on Environmental Law, Environment Protection, Land and Energy Laws, Sanjay Upadhyay, Videsh Upadhyay, LexisNexis Butterworths, Volume 3. The Secretary in charge of the Department of Urban Development of the concerned state or union territory shall have the overall responsibility for the enforcement of the provisions of these rules in the metropolitan cities. The Central Pollution Control Board and the state boards are responsible for monitoring the standards regarding groundwater, ambient air quality and the compost quality. Detailed procedures have been specified under the rules of the manner in which waste disposal facilities is required to be facilitated. The Central Pollution Control Board shall coordinate with the state boards and the committees with particular reference to implementation and review of standards and guidelines and compilation of monitoring data, the Biomedical Waste Management and Handling Rules 1998, the central government in exercise of powers under Sections 6, 8 and 25 of the Environment Protection Act 1986 has enacted the Biomedical Waste Management and Handling Rules 1998. These are 14 rules and 6 schedules. These rules came into force WEF 27 July 1998. These rules are enacted to regulate the biomedical waste generated by hospitals, clinics, blood banks, and other organizations. These rules apply to all people who generate, collect, receive, store, transport, dispose, or handle biomedical wastes. Biomedical waste means any waste which is generated during the diagnosis, treatment, or immunization of human beings or animals, or in research activities pertaining thereto, or in the production or testing of biological and including categories mentioned in Schedule 1, Rule 3, 5. The Biomedical Waste Management and Handling Rules 1998, issued by Ministry of Environment and Forests, wide notification No. 630E, dated 20th July 1998, was enacted to regulate biomedical wastes. The rules apply to all people who produce, collect, receive, store, or transport biomedical waste. The biomedical waste shall be properly treated and disposed of. Schedule 1 prescribes different method of treatment and standards are prescribed in Schedule V of the rules. It prescribes the different methods of disposal of biomedical waste according to their nature. Every occupier, according to the Rule 5 shall set up requisite biomedical waste treatment facilities. As per the rule, it shall be the duty of every occupier of an institution generating biomedical waste. This includes clinics, hospitals, veterinary center, and labs to ensure that such waste is handled with care without damaging our environment. The rules also prescribe the manner in which the standards are to be complied with, including the segregation, packaging, transportation, and storage of biomedical waste. Further, it provides that no untreated biomedical waste shall be stored for more than 48 hours. One authority, prescribed by the government, shall be responsible for implementation of different rules. The prescribed authority would be under the overall control of the state government of the union territory. There is also provision to have an advisory committee comprising of specialists in medical sciences, veterinary sciences, environment, sciences, and administration. A notification is also issued to use fly ash in brick manufacturing processes and construction work. This would solve the problem of disposal of substantial amount of solid waste in the form of fly ash or pond ash that is generated through thermal power plant, coal, or manufacturers. 3.9 Legal Framework on Environment, Authorities and Environment Protection. The Central Pollution Control Board, CPCB, is the nodal agency at the national level for pollution control generally. It is an autonomous body set up in September 1974 under the provisions of the Water Act, 1974. It coordinates the activities of state pollution control boards and also advises the central government on all matters concerning the prevention and control of environmental pollution. CPCB, SPCB and PCCs are responsible for implementing the legislations relating to prevention and control of pollution. They also develop rules and regulations for standards for emissions and effluent of air and water pollutants and noise levels. The State Board for Prevention and Control of Water Pollution, constituted under the Water Act 1974, or a State Board for the Prevention and Control of Air Pollution, constituted under THEAR Act 1981, are the nodal state-level implementing authorities for pollution control. Numerous authorities have been created under the EPA. For example, the historic Taj Mahal was attempted to be resolved through the Taj Trapezium Zone Pollution Authority. Similarly, Environment Pollution Authority was created for the National Capital Region. The legislative framework of EPA and the rules and regulations issued thereunder, the concept of environment audit, EI and CRZ, are important legal tools. Several rules regarding consent of procedures, sitting of industrial projects, regulations of hazardous wastes, management of solid wastes, and numerous authorities created under the Act can be judiciously used for various aspects of environment protection. The courts have distinctly approached problems of environment protection under two clear planning and schemes. On one hand, there is a judicial aggression on cases where pollution is the major cause of conflict, and on the other, there appears to be judicial restraint when it comes to mega projects in the area of infrastructure. The courts have relied on the wisdom of the state more often and considered that the policy not to be interfered with. The cases on nuisance and environment protection show that common law principles may be utilized for environment protection. National Environment Appellate Authority. The National Environment Appellate Authority was created in 1997 primarily to deal with the numerous cases that flooded the Hobbieli Supreme Court and with a view to deal with the conflicts by a group of experts headed by a retired judge of the Hobbieli Supreme Court. The objective of this authority is to bring transparency in the process and ensure smooth implementation of the development schemes and projects. Relevant legislations. Chapter 14 of the Indian Penal Code deals with offences affecting public health, safety. Section 268 of IPC talks about public nuisance and deems guilty a person who is indulged in an illegal act, causes common injury to the public. In Madhavi v. Thilkan, 1988 to KLT 730, the Kerala High Court has observed that workshop is responsible for causing nuisance by air pollution, but it was also the livelihood to some persons. So this was not the valid ground for causing pollution. Under S134 CRPC, the order passed by the magistrate has to be served on the person against whom it is made. Non-compliance with the order is punishable under S188 of Indian Penal Code. Section 136 CRPC, in urgent cases of nuisance or apprehended danger, Section 144 CRPC, the magistrate can also issue order directing a person to do or to abstain from doing something. Section 278 of Indian Penal Code deals specifically with offence of making atmosphere noxious to health. This section provides for imposition of a fine who voluntarily vitiate the atmosphere injurious to public health. Section 290 of Indian Penal Code is a residual clause that provides for fine for public nuisance. 3.10 Important judgments on environment protection. Municipal Council Ratlam v Vardhichand ORS, Sachidanand Pandey v State of West Bengal, M.C. Mehta v Union of India, L.K. Kulwal v State of Rajasthan, Tehri Bandh Viridhi Sangharsh Samiti v State of UP, M.C. Mehta v State of Odisha, M.C. Mehta v Union of India, Bhopal Gas Disaster Case, State of Himachal Pradesh v Umod Ram Sharma, Union Carbide Corporation v Union of India. 3.11 Summary. Right to healthy environment is firmly established. To protect the environment is prime duty of the state. New dimensions of legal control are added and new challenges are opened before courts. There have been significant changes in the law and jurisprudence relating to environment in India. The proper balance of the ecosystem is the need of the environment. Protection and development is a coexisting reality, and industry needs to be conscious for sustainable development. From time to time, various legislations relating to protection of environment from specific types of pollution have been passed by the Indian legislature. Environmental law is a synthesis of principles, concepts, and norms generated by other laws. For remedying environmental harm, concepts of civil liability, which had their origin in tort, have been accepted. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with the next chapter.